Hey everyone, welcome back to Self-Serving Skillet. We are gonna make today the most juicy, wonderful breaded fillet of fish that you've ever had. And we're gonna be using the sour cream that we made together on Patreon. Now I'm using walleye for this, which is sort of a Minnesota staple, although here we usually have it on a sandwich or even on a stick. That's kind of a state fair trend. And it's mostly a northern United Statesian and Canadian freshwater fish, but any fish can do. This particular fish has a very large flake, but anything can work. I would tend to stay away from fillets that are over about 1.5 inches, maybe 4 or 5 centimeters at the most, because you want to bake this at 450 degrees Fahrenheit, around 220 Celsius, for a relatively short amount of time. Per inch, per 2.5 centimeters of girth on this fillet, you want about 10 minutes. So preheat that oven to 450 Fahrenheit, and you want to get your sour cream mixture ready. Now we're using sour cream really just because we have it. This is going to make the most just delicious and moist fish that you've had. And you can also use this with chicken. You can use this with pork chops. I haven't used it with steak, but let me know if you experiment. And that nice creamy sour cream is gonna hold in all the moisture from our fish while it bakes, and then we're gonna bread it with panko. Now panko is a breadcrumb. It's a breadcrumb product, but the structure of panko is a little bit different. It has a lot more air pockets in it, so it doesn't get soggy quite as easily as regular breadcrumbs. It stays crispier for longer, which is great for our purposes because we're gonna be making this very wet. And I'm making enough of this for 4 fillets, but I'm only gonna make 2 fillets today. I can take the rest of this, I can pack it up in the fridge, make sure to label it as your fish sour cream or your chicken sour cream so somebody doesn't come along and start eating it. And then your work is like halfway done for later in the week. So I want about a cup of sour cream, 240 milliliters. And to that, I'm gonna add 1 big spoon of onion powder. In grams, I'd say it's a little bit lighter than salt, so maybe like 12 grams, 15 if you like it really oniony. And after that, I want the zest of a whole lemon. I want lemon and fish, they are just partners. So I want the zest of a whole lemon into this sour cream. And it's very important when you're zesting a fruit, when you're using that outside rind, to wash it, because they all have something on them to keep the bugs away. So you want to wash all of that off with soap, with a brush, and then we can zest to our heart's content. I'm also going to chop a whole handful of chives. I want some chives in this. Those are also gonna have a nice oniony flavor, but they're also gonna be fresh and herbaceous. And we just want some very nice and subtle and complementary flavors in this sour cream that'll go with our fish. We want the fish to be the hero of the show. And last but not least, you want to put just a pinch of salt and pepper in this. Now, I'm a big advocate for being able to taste what I'm doing when I'm salting, and you can definitely taste your sour cream here. It's just gonna be a little bit different with the fish. This is the only salt in the whole thing, unless you're gonna salt the fillet. You can salt the fillet before you do it. That's no problem. But if this is the only salt, I would tend to go a little bit heavier on the salt, because that's all you're getting with this. You choose your own journey. I like it salty. And you can always add salt later at the table. And I like to stir this all together and then let it sit for a good 20-30 minutes. Let those flavors marry together. Let everything kind of get to know each other, and then I can dip my fish. And these fillets were a little bit bigger than I thought they were going to be, so I got a little bit creative. I dunked the first fish And then I came in with some more panko to lay on top of it. And afterwards, my hands were pretty sour creamy. So I just kind of dragged the whole fish through the panko. I'm gonna get those onto a lined baking sheet. I used parchment paper. Don't use wax paper. You could use foil if you want, but I think it's unnecessary. Get that into that 450 degree Fahrenheit oven for maybe 10 minutes or so. The thickest part of this fish was just less than an inch, maybe 2 centimeters, maybe 3/4 of an inch. So I went with 8 minutes and I checked it and I still needed the extra 2. If you really want this panko to get nice and golden brown, you can drizzle this with a little bit of oil, but I didn't do that here because I wanted my sour cream to stay completely on that fish and not be dragged down by anything until it was baked on. And in my experience, if you add a little bit of oil, that also drips down and takes some of that sour cream with it. So this doesn't look the most golden brown, but all of that flavor is intact. All of the juice inside the fish is right there for you to have. And when those are out, I'm probably gonna let it rest for 3-4 minutes, not enough to let it cool, but just enough to let the heat kind of come to equilibrium. And I'm gonna serve it with some of the potato salad that we made last episode. This show is largely funded by the incredible generosity of my Patreon supporters. If you'd like extra content every month, patreon.com/self-serving skillet. If you sign up at the duck egg level, you're gonna get an extra show every month. But Patreon supporters of any level will be able to view all of this content through Patreon completely ad-free, so you'll never have to watch another ad like this. And would you look at that? That is just such a wonderful and complete meal. I'm not even sure that I'm gonna need this lemon, but what better way to not waste the lemon that we zested than to serve it with the meal? Let's dig right into this fish. This fish is perfectly done. It needed about 10 minutes in there. It's almost an inch thick at its widest part. And you want those flakes to separate when you cut into it. It's delicious. That sour cream marinade, it's not even really a marinade, it's a wash. That sour cream wash just makes this so succulent and delicious. Panko stays crispy for a really long time. We use the same sour cream to make our potato salad. The match really is very wonderful. I'm gonna use a little bit of this lemon juice. I might add a little bit more salt, but that's all to be done at the table. Everyone's preferences are a little bit different. And of course, it's perfectly served with our potato salad that we made last week on the show. That's gonna go right here in case you missed it. We made the sour cream together on Patreon at the duck egg level. That's gonna go in the description below. And of course, I made that sour cream for some nachos a couple weeks ago. That one's going right here. Get in the kitchen and make yourself something amazing.